Well, welcome, Riff listeners. Today we have a treat for you. I am going to trade places with our podcast producer, John Jarosinski, affectionately known as Jaws to me and anybody within earshot of me. And Jaws has been on this team for 12 years in several different areas of leadership. And I'm going to have Justin interview Jaws as Jaws is going to be transitioning to a new role, a new opportunity, not in a new state, but a new to us state of Kentucky. And Jaws means so much to North Point. He's been so much part of this vision, and I think this is going to be a very meaningful episode as Justin, who's been close friends with Jaws, worked with him closely for many years, gets to sit down and introduce you to his story and what he's learned from his time here at North Point. So listeners, enjoy this episode. I think you're going to get a lot out of it.
And then we're recording, Jaws. We're doing this.
Hi.
Hey, man. Oh, my goodness. How does it feel? Usually, Jaws is on the other side of, I guess it would be called the mic. Would that be
the
called?
mic, the camera, the headphones?
Oh, my goodness. I'm so excited you're here.
Thanks.
Yeah. You know what I'm not excited about?
What's that?
You leaving here. That's what I'm not excited about. But what we're going to do today is we're going to get a chance to kind of walk through your story, what you've learned at North Point, what you kind of hope North Point is going forward as you jump into your next season, and then talk a little bit about your next season and your family and what you're hoping for and praying for. And yeah, that's what we're going to do today.
Cool.
We're going to riff.
We're going to riff.
I
like
you've
it.
only listened to like 50 of these. So
listen to every episode.
Jaws actually edits all of them, records all of them, produces all of them. So I think you know the plan by now, hopefully at least.
Yes.
Or you've just been faking it.
Well, the show notes sometimes trip me up, though. Sometimes I got to go back and make sure we got the right things. Joey Chestnut, that was a treat.
It was a treat.
I looked that up. That was strong.
I'm sorry you looked it up. Please don't look it up. Jaws, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us how you ended up at North Point 12 years ago. 12, right? I mean,
12 years
12
ago.
years, right?
Yep.
So just kind of walk through that. Where you came from, old Wisconsin. Is that how you say that?
Wisconsin is
and kind of tell us a little bit of your journey, man, up to this point.
Yeah. So I grew up in Wisconsin, 2 older brothers. We were about 15, 20 minutes from Lambeau Field. So cheese was in our veins, quite literally. Our pastor of the church I grew up in, his wife was the secretary to the GM of the Packers. So we knew
was all the pastor Brett Favre?
The pastor was Brett Favre.
Okay, thank you.
And it was
even
special.
if that's not true, I just want to believe
he was
it.
the OG pastor to wear jeans on stage. I will just say that. No, it was super fun because it was tiny town, but yet we had this big football team. And luckily I was born at the time where the Packers were actually good and had a shot and still have been good. So it's been a fun ride. But it was we had the inside scoop to the Packers every single Sunday. So it was oh, who's getting traded? And people show up in their jerseys to church. And that's normal, very normal. Yeah. And literally you could tell who the crowd was going to the games because they would peace out 20 minutes before service was over. And it was see you later, half the right side.
Really same in Missouri, but it's just it's Cracker Barrel. It's who's going. Barrel. Yeah, it's just not,
So yeah, grew up in church, and that was a fascinating experience. I learned a lot about myself growing up. Grew up in a youth group that was really life-giving. Had my closest friends were a part of that church. And I grew up commuting everywhere all the time because we were in this tiny town of 3,000 people outside of Green Bay. And so everyone in Springfield, it's so fascinating. It's I got to travel to the other side of town on Chestnut Expressway, which isn't an expressway, by the way. And it's 15 minutes. And I was yeah, I grew up 15 minutes from everything. So the commute and that time was fun as a family. So I was the youngest of 2 older brothers. I was always stuck in the middle seat. And so I was the kid that always kind of antagonized the older siblings. And of course they were bigger than me, so I got the snot kicked out of me plenty of times growing up. But it was a great experience. I loved Wisconsin. Everywhere you look, there's cows and farms, and everyone's got a 4-wheeler. So it's you got to do tons of outdoorsy, less supervision than normal activities, for better or for worse. So was going through, graduated high school. Both of my older brothers were into engineering. My dad was very mechanically minded. He owned his own business, very much a thinker and a inventor type, putting solutions to the table.
Which is what you've brought to this team for 12 years.
Which
just
is,
so that you know. Like,
so when people tell you you grow up to become your dad, it's 100% true. No, it was super cool being around new experiences and new things and creations, and it was always fun as a kid because I felt like I brought a little bit more of a I don't want to say artistic, but maybe more of a spontaneous kind of brain to the family. And so I was going through high school and really kind of didn't know what I wanted to do. I was always the kid who was on a computer. We had one of those colored iMacs when those first came out in like the late 90s. And it was
big body.
Yeah, they were massive.
bubble.
But it looked like candy.
Yeah.
And I grew up on the computer, like dabbling with video and creating. And that was such a fun outlet for me. And I honestly think like if I didn't have access to a computer at such a young age, like that would have changed what I was into. And I was very much into online. Like my parents got dial-up before, probably well before I should have had access to the internet. So yeah, I can understand the challenge of today. We know what the internet is and apps and access for kids and stuff, but like I just got to browse and roam. So it was like I found forums of weird things. Like I was super into Xbox and all these very nerdy things. I don't think my parents had any supervision over me as a kid. And so I literally had no idea what I wanted to do out of high school. So I was like, I want to do something with computers. Both my older brothers went to an engineering school that was in Milwaukee, and they were like the top engineering school in the state. So very expensive, but like high placement rates, fun experience, downtown Milwaukee. So it was like big city, like coming from this small town was very appealing. And so I was adamant I didn't want to go to a Christian college. And it was strictly for the reason of they don't get jobs. Like they don't get jobs doing what they went to college for. So I was adamant, like didn't even pass my radar at all. So both my older brothers go to that college. And the day after I graduated high school, my second oldest brother, Nathan, died by suicide. And I was 18 years old. And that really began a shift in, obviously, in our whole family of how do you embrace grief and loss? How do you deal with something like that? And I was also at a unique time. My dad was losing his business at the time. It was during the recession, and there was a lot of just movement and turmoil and hardship in those days. And as an 18-year-old who kind of felt like I was stuck in the middle of it, I never felt like I was a victim, but I always felt like, what do I do with it? Like, how do we process that? And so my oldest brother, Craig, he's 6 years older than me. So we both lost like the closest brother that we had. So he lost his closest younger brother. I lost my closest older brother. Yeah. And so the plan was to like go live with Nate in Milwaukee and go to engineering school. And so it was like, well, I guess I'm just going to go to engineering school just without Nate. And so that was I don't think I was very honest with myself at that time of what that meant and how that would affect my trajectory of what I wanted to do, the circumstances of processing grief. And even for my parents, I think it was very much like, do whatever you see best and we'll support you, because they're grieving at the same time. And so through that whole process, I did a year and a half of engineering school. I hated it. It was awful. I made some great friends at that time. Yeah. And the school was awesome, very supportive of our family and just that grief process. But it was just like, it was a bad, like, why go to that place where that was meant to be so many memories and things like that? And so I called my dad, and this is in the middle of the semester of my second year. And I'm like, I'm quitting. I'm coming home. I don't know what I'm going to do. And that was really tough. That was a really tough conversation. And it wasn't disappointment from my parents, but it was more of a, well, what's next?
Right.
And through that process, what that kind of revealed was just like, I think we all just needed time together to process. I think we all kind of shortchanged ourselves on grieving. And it was really helpful to I went back home. I worked with my dad for doing any jobs that he was doing at the time. And I was just like, I don't know. And so for me, it was very pivotal because at that moment, I felt like that's when I had some great friends at that time who were like, this is the time you need to lean on God. And you're like, what does that mean? Lean on God. Like, how, I can't see him. I can't actually physically do that. But it was like, okay, let me journal, let me read scripture, let me have people in my life who would pour into me and encourage me. And through that whole process, it was like, hey, it's okay to go through tough circumstances. You got to be strong for yourself too in those circumstances. So like everyone always pointed out like, man, John, it feels like you're handling this grief and loss really well and quitting school. But I wasn't doing that for myself. And so I felt like God was revealing to me at that time that just like, hey, it's okay. Tough days are okay. And I'm with you and you're not alone. And the pieces that you feel, that loss, that is going to drive you to your purpose and your mission. And so once I like embraced that, I mean, it was like things just started happening. Doors opened. It was just like, so you remember that whole part where I was like, yeah, I don't want to go to a Christian school. Literally, my best friend Jordan is at Evangel University in Springfield. I know nothing about Springfield. I know nothing about Evangel. He's like, hey, you should look at their programs at least. Like maybe getting out of Wisconsin would be really good for you. We love what we're doing here. We love like all our good friends. I had 6 people from my home church who were at Evangel at the time.
Really?
Yes. So it was like the boys club. All had commuted down to Evangel. And so I was like, well, I guess I'm going to do the same. And my parents, of course, are going, oh, great. Like, he's just following his friends. They're just going to cause chaos. And
at a Christian school.
At a Christian school. It's going to be
Crazy.
terrible. And so I applied in December, like December 20th. And the semester started January 6th. And I was accepted in 2 weeks. I did all the like testing and transfer credits and all this stuff. But I was really starting over.
Yeah.
And my parents drive me down to Evangel, and I could tell they're just freaked out, absolutely freaked out, know nothing about Springfield. And for me, I'm like, whole new world, right?
Yeah.
It's like, let's start this thing over. And I just felt like my life took off. I was connected with so many people who were beneficial of me processing, losing a brother and growing as a Christian and being more like Jesus, like, all of that time frame, especially that first year at Evangel, was, I feel like it was so crucial in understanding myself and understanding like what I'm good at, what I enjoy doing. And so I started doing all this digital media type stuff and working with Adobe, and I got plugged in at my roommate. His dad was buddies with Tommy Sparger, and they went to school together and was like, hey, you should check out North Point. My roommate is the one who brought me to North Point, was just like, they use media in a cool way. I think you would like it. So I go, and it was the second week I went, and I was like, I think I want to get involved with this. So that's when I met you for the first time. And I didn't know what I was signing up for. I thought it was this super intense, like, production thing, like, and it just ended up being a place where I was like, I can be me, and that's not weird. And I didn't know a lot, and you were super open-handed with just that process of like, hey, come alongside, just hang out, like, get better at your craft. And it wasn't like, well, I want to do that. It was just more of like, oh, this is fun to learn. And I just got to hang out by your side the whole time. And honestly, I was probably the annoying kid that was like, hey, when can I show up? When can I show up? When can I show up? So I probably annoyed the crap out of you for that first year. And so
Only
I'm sorry.
Monday through Friday. It
Yes,
was really,
exactly.
Saturday Sundays were great because we weren't really together. So it was
Right.
great. No.
So it was great because I felt like what I was learning in school was coupled with real life projects of doing stuff in the church. And I just fell in love with the mission of North Point, of safe place to find and follow Jesus. And it wasn't necessarily defined as that at the time, but there was something about it that was unique. And we want to reach people who don't like church, have been to church and had a bad experience, and people who would say, I don't even know what it's like to follow Jesus. Or and they might even say, I think it's stupid that you follow Jesus. And that was so different from an experience I had growing up, where it was very much everything's, you're either in or you're out, or you're this or you're this. And it laid the table to actually investigate and be curious for myself. And that was so critical in following Jesus, because, you know, experience tells you, I felt like I was taught a lot of things about what Christianity was and wasn't. Well, when you experience a loss, like a personal suicide in your family, that really wrecked of like, well, God, I thought I was following in your favor. And I thought like if our family like was pursuing you and trying to do the best with what we have and giving our time at church and tithing and preparing a table for people, that bad things don't happen. And that was that wasn't the picture that was painted, but that was the picture I painted for myself of what I thought Christianity was. And so it was really cool to be able to go to a space where I could have those questions and doubts without it being, well, you're doing this wrong. And it never was that place. And so I just fell in love with it. And ever since then, it's why I do what I do. And my role has shifted and changed how many times.
You were the first intern.
I was the first intern, like media-wise, right?
Yeah, first production worship. I remember I went home that day. My wife was cooking dinner, and I walk in, and she's like, "So, did you get interns?" I was like, "We did." She's like, "Great. What are their names?" And I said, "Well, Jaws and Taco." So she's like, "Is it a fraternity?" I'm like, no,
yes.
I think they're going to be great. It's going to be great.
It's a food truck business. Jaws and Taco.
But it's true. You were one of the first interns here, and you've held how many positions? I think you've worked at every campus.
I've worked at every campus. I think I've done 5 or 6 different positions over the years.
Yeah. And then finally got to a spot to where you were leading all of production house. You're on the leadership team. Kind of walk through just your experience with North Point as a staff and kind of here. Another reason we really want to do this too is we have a thing called Base Camp as a staff, and it's the way that we communicate across a bunch of different campuses. And when anybody exits the staff, we always try to celebrate them the best way possible. And one of the avenues is through a written write-up on Base Camp. And our written write-up of Jaws was, man, he's been here for over a decade, and the impact that you've had not just on North Point as an organization, but the people, right? Like, our organization is people. Like that is what we're here for, right? And you've made such an impact. And it was like, I don't know, 75 comments. I don't know how many it was, but it was like, we got to have Jaws on the Riff. I want to hear Jaws' story. We got to have Jaws on the Riff. So as you kind of walk through your story, what did you find at North Point, and what are your hopes for North Point in the future as you start to exit? And then we're going to talk about your plans and kind of what you're walking into in the next season. But kind of walk through that. What do you look at and hope for North Point continues to do or did for you that we hope, or you hope does for others?
Yeah, like I kind of mentioned a little bit before, but the idea of presenting gospel in a way where it's accessible. Mm-hmm. And it's not this membership class. It's not this checklist of prerequisites, but it literally being an open table of inviting people to it. That not only fuels me, but it also, it's the thing that kept me coming back through all those different positions. It was like, no matter what position I was doing on the team, it felt like I was inviting people to a table. Mm-hmm. And it made following Jesus accessible in a way because it wasn't about performance and where's your heart at and where, like, how are you leveraging your influence to always invite people to church. And that was a really odd journey because the whole time, like, you always wanted to extend that grace you felt of what God has done in your life. And so when you get to work on the behind the scenes stuff of bringing people to a table through many different avenues and different roles and jobs, like, I think at the end of the day that extends across North Point as a whole, whether you're in kids or you're doing facilities or you're creating websites or you're speaking around the stage. You're creating a bridge to make the good news accessible. And that is like core for me. Mm-hmm. I never wanted to be a part of a church or be on a mission where it was like, well, you got to do this, this, and this to get in and have access. The accessibility is just huge. And so that transformed my life as well because it caused me to look at what am I gripping to that's causing me to have blinders on, to just look at what's in my path ahead. But it's broadened it in a way where I get to swivel. And now it's like, okay, if I put myself in their shoes, what would invite them to the table? And that has been so critical in how I approach relationship and how I approach my relationship with my wife, with how my friends are able to pour back into me, because at the end of the day, what that's doing is creating that cycle of we're all coming to the table together and offering a perspective in a way that's hopefully helpful at the end of the day. And it points back to Jesus every single time. And following Jesus isn't this switch, right? That it's just like, cool, now you did it. You're doing it. Like it's a constant chiseling away of things in your life that you have this very set belief about.
And here's the deal, man. I think that you've done such a great job at North Point specifically with creating a safe place, because I think that you understand the importance of it. Because Jesus isn't safe, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So, I mean, you kind of walk through like C.S. Lewis and the Chronicles of Narnia and that whole thing. Like when the kiddos meet Aslan, they ask, is he safe? Aslan is the Christ figure, right? And the answer is no, he's not safe, but he's good, right? So like it's such an honor to be able to set a table that is safe for you to interact with something that is going to chisel away at your soul.
Yes, 100%.
And that's what, I mean, I think that you just understood that as you walked in with your story and being vulnerable and open with your story as you walked in. Like I knew your story the first week that we got together. And it changed, like it made me want to invest in that relationship even more, right? So I just think from day one, you've understood, and it's just been in you, just the mission and the vision of North Point, which has just been awesome. So keep going.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So my favorite part about North Point is leveraging a creative way to build a bridge.
Yeah.
And that's done through music, that's done through art, that's done through stupid videos, that's done through powerful messages that are...
Listen, speaking of stupid videos, Easter, we had a house rules, and people were asking, how did you guys get that like tailored to North Point? And you were the voice.
I have a slew of stupid voices just waiting to be used up, and North Point's a great outlet for it. So my other favorite, the Chibis, the Christmas holiday invite body art stencil is a treat. We might have to show note that one.
We'll show note both of them. They're jewels. They are jewels.
So, but no, it's literally that. So when you talk about inviting people to the table when Jesus isn't safe, what we get to do is do something that actually affects our own faith. Yeah. So when we're creating pieces, it's changing our own heart. Yeah. And that is not only is it empowering, but it causes you to consistently examine yourself of, is this reaching me or not? Or am I just doing this for entertainment?
Yeah.
Because there is the other side of that, right? And we've been down that road of what's entertainment at North Point, what's a bridge, how can we do both at the same time in order to build a bridge, to bring people to the table. And that process, it doesn't happen overnight. Like you have to pendulum swing all the way to one side and then go, okay, no, this might be a little this, or this. So then you kind of pendulum swing to the other side. And really where you want to land is somewhere in that middle. And that's how following Jesus is as well. It's like you think Jesus is this thing over here. So it's like, okay, I'm going to set these rules and these habits and these disciplines, and I'm going to think about it this way. And it's like, well, you become a little like Pharisees over there when you do that. So then you swing it back this way, and it's like, everything's free reign, and you just attack it and you go for it. And it's a wild world out there. And it's somewhere in the middle. And what that does every time is it calms your soul. And it gives you that access. I'm an Enneagram 7, so I learned, if you've done the Enneagram, it's wild because it totally speaks to who you are, and it does in a way where I felt like I had pieces to me where I was like, I'm a rabbit chaser. I want to go do whatever's fun, and anytime something was boring, I was like, well, what else do you guys want to do? Like, come on, let's go do something. And I always thought that was kind of an Achilles heel for me as a kid because I felt like I couldn't focus and get something done. But at the same time, I loved every single aspect of what I was attacking. And that's so goofy because when we talk about a wide table, that's literally, that spoke to me because it was like, oh, I can leverage that in a way where that is helpful.
Yeah.
And there is times where focus and endurance and those pieces are super helpful in coming up with a solution that actually moves the needle forward. But at the end of the day, the ability of me to be able to pivot and grab new things and see wide, I learned that was like my best asset. And I think that's why being able to pivot across so many different positions in North Point I've never once been in a position at North Point where I was like, really wish I wasn't doing this anymore. It's naturally kind of grown and changed as North Point has grown and changed. And that's that whole faith conversation brought back to it, right? It's like you're chiseling away pieces in order to make a wide table.
And here's something else I believe, man. I think that you ended up on the leadership team for a reason. And I think that reason is you were open-handed the whole time you've been here, man. And I think that you walking through so many different positions doesn't speak to you can't do that position well. It speaks to that you're a team player, and you played a role in any capacity that North Point as an organization needed to make a safe place for people. And that, I think, is what I walk away from our time together, that I'll always remember of you were always like, sure. you never got attached to your role. You never got attached to, well, this is my job. Like, no, this like our job is to love people, right? Like, that's the principle, like people. The job is what we get to do, right? That's a tool, right? So speaking of that, 12 years, let's kind of walk into, for the next couple of minutes, where you're heading. Kentucky. Oh my goodness. How'd that come up? And what are you going to be doing, man?
Yeah. So Kenzie and I had the conversation probably 2 months ago. And like, we've kind of had this thing where it's like, you come up with these destinations of like, where could we see ourselves? And it's like, you know, you pick out all the highlights.
Kentucky's been on my top 50 for years.
Kentucky's never been on the list.
Top 50 for us, for sure.
Ever.
Yeah.
And like, we've had a couple of places that we like seriously looked at, but it was never like, there was never like a drive to actually like go for it and see what happens. And I just felt like in this last year, and it's been great because I've been able to have open conversations with you and Jeremy and just people on the team of like, I think my time at North Point's coming to an end, but I have no idea what that means. And that's a really weird thought process because this is the thing that I felt like launched me to where I'm at today. Like, this is our community and our home. We have family here. Kenzie and I put roots down here for the long haul. And it was just like, it's really odd because it was just a stirring in our soul. And so it was like, Kentucky, I don't know. So it was a month-ish ago, 6 weeks ago, Kenzie was approached to have a job that was full-time remote with contracting for Microsoft. And she is very much a business consultation brain where she thinks systems and processes and how that affects people's experience. And she's always wanted to get into this like consulting kind of vein, but it's like, how do you do that when you don't have any corporate world experience? Now she's working for one of the largest corporations in America and is a staple of technology that people use every single day. And so they were like, our work is fully remote. And so it was like, okay. And literally within that same week, I was reached out by a company that we're partnering with for the Nixa.
Yeah, great partnership. No, I love it. No, it's
eye
good.
for an eye,
yeah, that's
right?
a great partnership. Luke, I'm coming for you.
Yes.
So, no, I'm just, it's great.
Luke knows. No. Noah is working with this company, Housewright, and for this Nixa build project, one of the big things for us that we wanted to leverage was setting that campus up with technology that is going to help Nixa move forward over the next 10 years. And so one of the best ways to do that was to partner with a company that can set us up well, that can do the heavy lifting, and can hit us a price point that makes sense for the generosity of North Pointers. And it sets the table to invite people to find and follow Jesus. And we met them, a little over a year ago, spring of last year. And
here's the deal. I make fun of Housewright because I'm mad at them. But honestly, we ended up going with them because we had other companies. We actually had said yes to another company, but there was something in their culture that didn't align with us, right? So that's one of the reasons I actually am excited for you to join Housewright because I do feel like they are same vision, same mission, same mind as North Point. So, sorry, Luke. Even if I know he's listening, right? He listens.
He's got to listen.
He is now.
Hey, Mom. I've always wanted to say that too.
Are you serious?
I've always wanted to say that.
Hey, thank you for those cookies, by the way.
Oh, Mama Jar cookies.
Yeah, I'm not saying to you. I'm saying to your mom.
Yeah, it's definitely not me.
Oh my goodness.
I don't have that trait.
Keep going.
So yeah, Housewright they approached us, and it wasn't hey, I heard you're doing a building. Can we get your business? It was, hey, what do you guys do? You got multiple locations. Like, that's unique. And you do it portable to start, and you do that all in-house. That's really unique. Talk to me about that. And it was a very natural, organic process. And at the end of the day, they were like, hey, if you guys wouldn't mind, can we toss our name in the hat? And I was like, yes, please. So when we talk about the generosity of North Pointers and production and budgets and all that type of stuff, we always want to set the table for people. we're not going to go for the most we're not going to get the Lamborghini when the Ford does just fine. And at the same time, there's pieces
It's more of a Toyota.
Toyota.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
It's American.
Yeah, what is it?
They're made in all over the place in
Are they?
America.
All right,
Yeah.
okay,
Well,
all right,
either way.
okay, all right.
Anyway, it was like what lines up there in terms of us being a safe place to find and follow Jesus. I feel like we approach church a little bit more unique than what, a typical glimpse into a church might look like. And Housewright kind of picked us out in terms of like, I think we get what you do, and we think that's really cool. And so that always stuck with me. And as this process of the Nixa build went on, of just developing that relationship, Luke Oppression was just like, so again, this was within 3 days of Kenzie taking a full-time remote position. Luke was like, hey, we've got a position on our team that would bring solutions to the table for churches. And I was like, oh, that's me. And I was like, I think we need to have that conversation. And he's like, well, we want you to know you would have to move to Kentucky. And I was like, shoot. I don't know if I want to move to Kentucky. So then I go back to Kenzie, and she's like, don't waste this opportunity because I just took a full-time remote job. We don't have kids. We're not there yet. What other better time could it be for us to go on a new adventure? And from my perspective, I was like, oh man, like I didn't think we were at that spot. Kentucky wasn't on the destination list. And to be able to sit there and approach it from a perspective of, I don't know, maybe God's ordaining this thing and he's opened up doors that we just need to be obedient to. And one of the things that has always stuck with me is there's a message that Jeremy gives about being faithful, fruitful. And we don't know what's on the other side of faithful, but if we're following God and he's ordaining our footsteps and we believe that he is with us through that process, there's going to be a fruitful on the other side of something. And that's proven over and over in my life. Going to Evangel, faithful, fruitful. Experiencing North Point, faithful, fruitful. So this just felt like one of those things where it was like, God's put that in front of us and it's been easy to walk through. It's been oddly easy in the weirdest way. And it kind of still freaks me out how simple and easy it is. Yeah. But it's also extremely bittersweet because this is the place where we did put roots down. This is the place where Kenzie and I formed our marriage together and who we want to be and what we want to do and having family close by. And at the end of the day, it's like, no, North Point's still going to be a safe place to find and follow Jesus. And whether I'm a part of that mission or not, the crazy thing is I still get to be a part of that mission from the other side on Housewright. Like, we're going to be able to do these things together. It's wild. And I never would have guessed that God would lead us to that spot where we get to do both and North Point will always be our home. It will always be the place that formed our community and formed our relationships and has been the place that's helped us follow Jesus. And we are extremely grateful for every single opportunity we've had here and through many different seasons of challenge and success and fun and not fun and sweaty days at the DC and
pretty chilly too.
And very chilly
I go extreme
at times
with the DC.
Too. But just like COVID and pivoting and like you look at all of those things, we've been able to do so many great things together, and that's not going to stop. Yeah. And it's going to be super cool being able to follow the story of North Point from a different seat on the bus now, but always cheering North Point on and what the staff and the volunteers bring to the table every single week is going to look really different for us. And it's really weird to walk away from, but I think that's what we're supposed to do.
Yeah, so, and it's going to be a really long drive every Sunday.
8 hours.
That's crazy,
so
man.
Saturday night.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate you. And one of the things that Jaws and I have always done, and we've had difficult conversations over the years, and whenever we've had to have a conversation, we've always come up to one another and we'll say, open your hands, right? And so that's how he told me that he was leaving, which is great. So for the last time, Jaws, open your hands. Yep. I love you, and I'm proud of you.
Thanks.
And thank you so much for everything that you've given to North Point, but more importantly, thank you for what you've given to the staff, to people, to me, my family. I appreciate you, and we are praying for you. We're excited for Housewright because they are getting a good dude, and they're getting a good family in the Jarosinski family. So thank you very much, man. Appreciate you.
Thank you. And Riff listeners, you get to hear my voice. every single week, that's probably going to change.
I don't know. I think we're going to keep it.
I really want Belgium to continue to hear my voice in some way, shape, or form. So I just want to throw that out
They've
there.
never said it, but I can feel it that you are the reason we have Belgium listeners.
Face for radio right here. Thank you, Belgium.
Joss, thank you.
You bet.
Love you, man.
You too,
Riff,
man.
we'll see you next week.
Thank you again for listening to this episode. The Jarosinski family, we love you. May God's best blessings be upon you. And you always got home right here when y'all get tired of Kentucky. So, hey, we'll be coming at you with another episode next week. So watch for it to drop here on The Riff.